Luxury real estate developer Mohamed Hadid is in the process of building the largest single-family home to have been ever permitted in the city of LA. Hadid and his listing team debuted this 78,000 square foot home last year at the insane price of $250 million, which obviously created a huge buzz. At the time, they were marketing it as a home that was in construction that would be finished in just a few short years. Here we are just a year later though, and construction at this project has come to a screeching halt, with Hadid defaulting on his debt and filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Most people are shocked that this over-the-top mega mansion was even able to be approved to be built in the first place, seeing that it's obnoxiously oversized compared to all of the normal and more modest houses in the surrounding area. But somehow Hadid was able to get this project through the city, just like a lot of his other controversial projects scattered all over LA. In today's episode, we are going to first take a look at this wild $250 million listing together. We'll check out the renderings and we'll review all of the specs. Then we'll talk about what this bankruptcy filing means for Hadid and the future of this project. Also, just to connect the dots here, Hadid was the developer who built that $100 million spec home at 901 Strada Vecchia Road that I flew out and toured earlier this year, just a few weeks prior to it being demolished. So the home that we're talking about today is another one of those spec projects. These are the ones that the developers build out with no end buyer lined up. It's a really risky, high stakes business, but what these developers like Mohamed Hadid are doing is they find a really great piece of dirt in a really desirable neighborhood. They design an amazing house to put onto that lot, and then usually once that house is finished being built, they list it for sale and sell it, hopefully for a profit. As far as the location of the subject of today's video, this one is located at 9650 Cedarbook Drive in Beverly Hills, California. It's one of the most northern sections of Beverly Hills and right next to the Franklin Canyon Trails and Reservoir. It's hard to tell from this angle, but 9650 Cedarbook Drive is actually a 38-acre property according to the marketing material. Most of that acreage though is hillside and up here on the top of the hill. When you have a hillside property like this, you can't get too excited about high acreage right off the bat, because if the acreage is on the side of a hill that's sloped like this, it is going to be very challenging and very expensive to build there. Anyway, flipping over to Hilton and Highland's website, this is who last had the listing at 9650 Cedarbook Drive. They're saying the home is for sale for $250 million. It's a 19 bedroom, 33 bathroom, 78,000 square foot property. Then they go on to say that this is the largest property to ever be permitted in the city of LA. Now, quick sidebar, some of you guys might be wondering, how is this possible? Isn't the One the largest property to ever be permitted in the city of LA? I mean, after all, the One was sold with a recorded 105,000 square feet of living space, so why doesn't that house hold the title for the largest house on record? Well, Los Angeles Building Services site is a mess, so it's really hard to verify this for sure, but my understanding is that the One project at 944 Ariel Way was never actually approved to be built at 105,000 livable square feet. That means that even though Hadid's new project at Cedarbook Drive is technically a little bit smaller at 78,000 square feet, it can hold the title because it's the largest home to ever be permitted in the city of LA. Anyways, enough about that. Let's get back to the listing. They say that the home is currently under construction. The amenities and privacy are second to none. This place has a guest house, an elevator, a 3,000 square foot garage, a gym, a lounge, a pool, a massage room. The list here just goes on and on, just as you'd expect. Then at the bottom, they actually say the property construction could be taken over at the completion of the foundation for just $92 million, or purchased upon completion for $250 million. This marketing material is almost a year old at this point. I think that the fact that Hadid was trying to sell this place for $92 million with just a foundation poured is kind of an early sign that he was already in financial trouble way back then. Looking at the renderings of this place, first we have this shot which shows a nicely landscaped hillside, and then if we zoom in, there's a ton of layers here. It's kind of weird because the house is supposedly just a 2-story, but I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total levels on this place. Here's another angle of the house. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked at how low quality this is, considering this a $250 million listing. There's some people out there nowadays who do renderings that look so real that you can't even tell they're a rendering. That's who Hadid should have hired for this. Here's a higher resolution shot though. This one obviously is showing the gym and one of the swimming pools. Then the last one here that they give us is what looks like the entry. Not gonna lie, this is pretty impressive. I've never seen an entrance to a home like this before. It straight up looks like you're driving up to a high-end resort. Now obviously those were all just renderings that are meant to give potential buyers an idea of what the house will look like once it's finished being built. But I was able to dig up this article from the Daily Mail that shows what this Cedarbook Drive lot looked like when it was first listed for sale last year for $250 million bucks. Let's check that out together. Now this notice that we see in this first picture is something that definitely irritated a lot of the locals who liked to hike these trails that are surrounding this lot. It says, notice, trail closed by developer Mohamed Hadid, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy sued to keep this trail open, but lost at the Court of Appeal. Here they're showing the gated entrance from that Cedarbook cul-de-sac, and from this shot, you can just really see how steep that hill is that they need to build the road on to get up to the house. We've got a zoomed in view of the stem walls and the foundation that's being built on the top of the hill, so if you're standing down in the cul-de-sac and looking up, my guess is this is something like probably 30 feet above your head. See, developing a hillside lot in Los Angeles like this is pretty challenging because of the condition of the soil. You have to usually drive these caissons way deep into the ground to basically hold the house up in the event that there's an earthquake or a landslide, things like that. And so it sounds easy enough in concept to just plop a house there at the top of the hill, but there's a ton of reinforcement that needs to happen and millions of dollars that are being spent to make sure that that house on the top of the hill never falls down. So we can see not a whole lot of progress was made on the development of that lot prior to them listing it for sale for $250 million bucks. It's not all that unusual for developers like this to list these houses for sale prior to them being completed, but the most ideal scenario is to at least wait until the house is framed prior to you listing it for sale so potential buyers can kind of get a feel for the flow. The fact that Hadid listed this house so early on in the construction process tells me that he was probably already in some serious financial trouble way back then. See, we've talked about this in the past when we reviewed other big projects like this one. These developers like Mohamed Hadid aren't building these mega mansions with their own money. They are taking out massive amounts of debts in order to pull things like this off. The Cedarbook project, for example, was bought way back in 2012. Hadid only paid about $2.5 million for the lot originally, but that was 10 years ago, and my guess is that between architect fees, engineering, permitting, grading, and concrete, he has spent at least another 10 or 20 million bucks just to get it to the state that it's in right now. Some of that money required to buy the lot and build it out into what it is so far is going to be some of Hadid's own money, but the rest of it is going to come from a lender, usually at a pretty high interest rate, and when you start racking up 10 or 20 or $50 million worth of debt at a high interest rate, that payment is going to be enormous. What has been really hard for developers that do projects like this that take so long is that it's almost impossible to create a budget in the beginning that you can rely on. I mean, think about the cost of labor and material back when Hadid bought this place in 2012 compared to the cost of labor and material today. The cost to build a residential home has basically doubled in the past 10 years. When you're a developer and you originally budget that it's gonna take about $75 million to build this insane mega mansion, but then you fast forward 10 years and now it's looking like it's gonna cost $150 million, that can make or break your deal. Somebody like Hadid in a situation like this oftentimes will find themselves in a place where the lenders cut them off and are not willing to write any more checks. And when you're in a situation where you have a project on your hands that is half built, you're out of money, and the lenders won't give you any more money, that usually only leaves you with one option: file for bankruptcy. The Real Deal just reported that Hadid's $250 million Beverly Hills mansion has moved into bankruptcy, saying that he filed for Chapter 11 according to documents filed with California's Central District Court in Los Angeles. In another report on this project from August of last year, The Real Deal says that Treetop Development, who is the LLC owned by Hadid that controls the Cedarbook project, was failing to pay some of their contractors. All the way back then, a judge ordered Hadid to to pay $111,000 to a drilling company, and another concrete company filed a suit against him saying they were still owed $3 million. All this really means from a timeline standpoint is that Hadid originally bought this place back in 2012. He spent tens of millions of dollars over the following years trying to build out this $250 million spec home. He stopped paying some of his contractors in 2021, and now here we are in 2022. Hadid has filed for bankruptcy, claiming that he doesn't have the money to pay back these contractors who did all this work on the project and the other lenders who gave him money to fund the deal. This is not the first time that we have seen Hadid file for bankruptcy as it relates to a massive development in LA. This happened at his nearby Franklin Canyon project and at that 901 Strada Vecchia project we were looking at earlier as well. Filing for bankruptcy is a strange but kind of necessary defense tactic that a lot of these guys use when they find themselves in over their heads on these development projects. Next steps from here are not looking good for Hadid or for the Cedarbook deal. With him filing for bankruptcy, what will likely happen next is the court will find that he owes way more on this project than the project is worth, and that will force a bankruptcy sale, just like we have seen with other over-the-top mega mansions built out in Beverly Hills and Bel Air. When this auction inevitably does happen, this half-built project will likely sell for pennies on the dollar because unlike the Sarbonne property or the One property, here we don't even have a house yet. Whoever ends up buying the lot will inherit a massive undertaking with years and years worth of work, but the positive is that a permit is already issued, so the green light to build is already taken care of. Now all you need is time and money to pull it off. If you enjoyed the episode today, guys, hit that thumbs up button down below before you go, or leave a comment about what you think the future is of the Cedarbook lot. And remember to hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. I'm putting new videos just like this one out every week, but that's all I've got for you guys this time. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see ya.